Create your own element. Don't try and perform someone else's expertly. So in modern terminology, or how would I say that, is don't waste your time. Steve Jobs, don't waste your time trying to live someone else's life. You know, don't be trapped by dogma. Focus in on your own strengths, your own element, what you have to offer. Don't get lost in trying to become like someone else or pretend to be someone else. There's a beautiful, one of my favorite quotes by Einstein and then Steve Jobs again. Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing that it's stupid. And too many of us are fish trying to climb a tree. Too many of us are monkeys being taught how to swim. Too many of us are lions being taught to live like cats. We're not getting to live in our element. So my second piece of advice is live in that element that you've naturally been given. Don't try adopt another. You know, we've all got a special genius inside of us. It was Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, this conversation. Steve Wozniak, for those who don't know, is the tech guy behind Apple. He practically invented the technology and the software and everything. So Steve Wozniak looked at Steve Jobs and he says, this is in Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs. Steve Wozniak looks at Steve Jobs and he says, what do you even do? He said, you're not a coder, you're not a designer, you're not a marketer, and you're not an engineer. What do you even do? Imagine challenging Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs replies, he says, musicians play their instruments, I play the orchestra. That is the most deep understanding of one's role in life and not getting lost in other people's identities and perceptions of you. Steve Jobs knew that he wasn't a marketer, he wasn't an engineer, he wasn't a coder, so he hired all of those. But he played the orchestra, he brought it all together. And that's when you find confidence in your own role, you won't be envious of anyone else's.
When this goes online or whatever it is, it really matters and it like really doesn't matter. What matters is, you know, the people who are sparked by it and the people who are like offended by it. It doesn't matter, you know, like, because it's about motivating the doers. And anyone that wants to sit around and talk, they're taking too much time talking shit about it instead of getting up off their ass and following their dreams. Because I'm here to follow my dreams, you know, and help other people follow their dreams and inspire people who are dreamers. It's crazy that we live in a world that if you're super positive and super creative, that it's scary. So what does that tell you about the mentality of most people if you're scared of like positivity and creativity?
Everyone has an element that they thrive in. If you take someone out of it, their element, they won't be the same. A modern day example would be Michael Jordan. He was incredible at basketball. You took him out of basketball, put him into baseball, no one remembers his career. We're talking about one of the best athletes of all time. Your environment is the environment around you. You can take a fish out of water and give it a beautiful mansion and a Bentley and all the money in the world, but it would die. And that's what we are, like our environment. Everyone needs an environment which they thrive, which we have to craft. Your boss, if you're at work, is never gonna ask you, hey, what environment do you succeed in, right? Like, that never happens. So we have to create an environment where we thrive. And then finally, it's energy. Some of us love high energy environments, high pressure. Some of us succeed in low energy environments and low pressure. Figuring out your energy and the frequency on which you operate best will help you thrive as well. So for me, those are the 3 E's to really create a thriving environment. Know your element, know your environment, and know your energy. And so at all times, if I see anything going wrong, I'm going, is my element out of alignment? Is my environment out of alignment? Or is my energy out of alignment? And that's a great 3-question test you can do to yourself when you don't think things are going right. And all you have to do is bring that back into alignment.
I'm not gonna sit inside of a corporation for 20 years. The time is now. The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.
What is it? And I think it's very interesting that if most people can't define success, well, it means you made X amount of dollars. But if you make X amount of dollars but you spend more, are you successful? Or, well, it means you come home happy every day. Okay, how do you know when you're happy, you know? So I think success is a funny thing, which is we all seem to pursue it, but we don't know how to measure it or actually how to define it. So how do you pursue something that you can't measure? Fascinating. So when people say to me, how do you measure success? The question we all have to ask ourselves, am I successful? I don't know. I mean, I had a good year last year. And what does that mean? Does that mean I made a lot of money? Does that mean I was really happy? Oh, I'll let you decide, right? Maybe neither, maybe both. I had a good year last year, but am I successful? And the answer is no. I don't feel I am, because I'm trying to build a world that doesn't exist yet. I'm trying to build a world in which 90% of people go home at the end of the day feeling fulfilled by the work that they do. So I definitely took a big step forward towards that goal, but I'm still so far away. So somebody said to me, then how do you know if you're successful? And the answer is, if it can go by itself. And so what is more interesting to me as a measurement of success is not the markers per se. It's not the financial goal or the size of the house that you want to buy. Those are nice things, go for it. But those are not measurements of success. Those are just nice things to collect along the way. Right. For me, it's momentum. I want to measure momentum, which is, when something is moving and you start to see it lose momentum, you're like, uh-oh, give it a push, because if you don't give it a push, it's going to stop. And an object in stasis is much harder to get going. It requires a lot more energy to get something started than it does to keep it going, right? And so if you don't let it stop and you can keep it going, it's this, it still might slow down there, but you can get it going again much easier. And for me, the opportunity is to get the ball rolling faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like a snowball. And my responsibility is, because it's not rolling downhill yet, it's not on automatic yet, I need to still keep it going to find that critical mass where it can go, and at the point it can go by itself without me, then I will find something else to do. And that may not happen in my lifetime. I think we must all stop measuring promotions, salaries, and these things, but rather measure the momentum of your career. Does my career have momentum? Can I see it moving in the right direction? Can I see it gathering moss? Can I see that it's becoming easier for me to keep the momentum? It's becoming easier for me to grow the size of this thing. It's requiring less effort. That's the thing we need to measure. Yeah. That's the thing that we need to be cognizant of, which is the momentum of our careers, not just the markers that we think define our success.
Everyone out there in TV world, real world, whatever world you stay in, needs to know that I've never done a publicity stunt in my life. Anytime I went up and spoke my mind, whether it put my career in jeopardy or whatever someone so-called said, it was always what I thought was the truth, whether I'm like reading through a teleprompter or whatever I felt emotionally. I don't follow like rules of normal celebrity or what their publicist tells them to say or anything. When I say things the wrong way, a lot of times my intention is always positive, and I want to bring more things to the world. I want to help the world. I want to make people's lives easier. If you guys look at the Zane interview, it's really something extremely fearless for someone in my position to do, because most people just bow down to TV or whatever, bow down to these cameras. Like, I could care less about any of these cameras, in all honesty. All I care about is my family. I care about protecting my girl, protecting my baby, and protecting my ideas and my dreams. I'm totally weird, and I'm totally honest, and I'm totally inappropriate sometimes. And the thing is, for me to say I wasn't a genius, I would just be lying to you and to myself.
Crazy dream or a crazy goal. I want you to write out in the comment section, what is your crazy dream? The dream that keeps you up at night is the real dream you should be chasing. But to chase that dream, to find that dream, to make that dream a reality, you need a strategy, right? A dream without a plan is just a wish. Tony Robbins said that, right? A dream without a plan is just a wish, right? Without a strategy, without a guiding philosophy, without guiding principles, without actually creating a clear plan. I used to have this economics teacher, and I want you to think back to school as well. Maybe you had one. I remember this economics teacher. He walked in to the classroom, and the first thing that he wrote on the board, he didn't even tell us his name. We didn't even know who he was. And he turned up, he went inside the classroom, and he wrote on the board, he said, "Failing to prepare is preparing to fail." And all of us just burst out laughing. This guy hadn't even told us his name yet. But on the board, he wrote, "Failing to prepare is preparing to fail." And now when I look back at that, and as I grew up and hopefully became a bit more mature than I was in high school, I remember thinking about that statement. I'm thinking, how true is that? That when you're not prepared for something, you miss out on unbelievable opportunities. Now, I'm not saying good things don't happen spontaneously. Sometimes things happen by chance, randomly, etc., with a reason. But when you're prepared, you can capitalize on things in a huge, huge way.
I refuse to follow those rules that society has set up in the way that they control people with low self-esteem, with improper information, with branding, with marketing. I refuse to follow those rules. It's about truth. It's about information. It's about awesomeness. And the only luxury is time, the time you spend with your family. That's the only luxury. So this concept of luxury is improper to me. When I compare myself to Steve Jobs or Walt Disney, Howard Hughes, David Stern, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Jesus, or whatever it is, I'm saying these are my heroes. These are people that I look up to. This is the type of impact I want to make on the earth. If I can make this type of impact up to this point, what can I do if you call Bob Iger and say, yo, give him a shot? If you call Oprah and say, yo, back this kid. That this kid's his parents were educators. He wants to educate. He wants to look at curriculums and say, how do we simplify that? Exactly what I did in music, I want to apply to product. I want to apply to education. This is what my company, Donda, is about.
You will embarrass yourself. You will suck at something. There's no doubt about it. And I know that's probably not a traditional message for a graduation ceremony, but hey, I'm telling you. Embrace it, because it's inevitable. And I should know. In the acting business, you fail all the time. Early on in my career, I auditioned for a part in a Broadway musical. Perfect role for me, I thought, except for the fact that I can't sing. So I'm in the wings, I'm about to go on stage, but the guy in front of me, he's singing like Pavarotti. He's just he's just going on and on and on, and I'm just shrinking. I'm getting smaller and smaller. So they say, "Oh, thank you very much, and you'll be hearing from us." So I come out with my little music, and it was Just My Imagination by the Temptations. That's what I came up with. So I hand it to the accompanist, and she looks at it and looks at me and looks out at the director and was like, all right. So I start, you know, I'm gonna sing. I'm like, it's just my imagination once again, and then coming away with me. And I'm not saying anything, so I'm thinking I'm getting better. So I just start getting into it. It was just my imagination. Running. This, oh yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Washington. Thank you. So I assumed I didn't get the job. But the next part of the audition, he called me back. The next part of the audition is the acting part of the audition. So I'm like, hey, okay, maybe I can't sing, but I know I can act. So they pair me with this guy, and again, I didn't know about musical theater. And musical theater is big, so they can reach everyone all the way in the back of the stadium. And I'm more from a realistic, naturalistic kind of acting where you actually talk to the person next to you. So I don't know what my line was. My line was, well, hand me the cup. And his line was, well, I will hand you the cup, my dear. The cup will be there to be handed to you. And I said, oh, okay. Well, should I give you the cup back? Oh, yes, you should give it back to me because you know that is my cup and it should be given back to me. I didn't get the job.
What does it take coming out of you? What's inside you that enables you or compels you to make films with such relentless drive? Where in the world does that come from?
It's I don't know. It's hard to say. It comes from.
You look pretty normal to me.
Yeah, I don't. Well, you never know. I mean, if the demons weren't unleashed through film, I'd probably go and be, you know, somewhere.
Well, there's a theory about that sort of thing.
On Thorazine, you know. No, I don't think that's true. I think it just has to do with how films that I liked, I remembered, you know, enjoying and having that exhilaration hit me, and I want to transfer that back to other people, and just studying the craft and learning how to do it, and the special thrill as a filmmaker comes from seeing an immediate audience response. Now, the only other sort of genre, or if it's not even a genre, but the only other thing that has that effect in films is comedy, and comedy is not my forte demonstrably yet.
A lot of people found that in Terminator.
and there's some comedy in this film.
Indeed.
But for a film to function as a comedy, I think there's a special magic there, and I'm creeping toward it, but I'm not sure I can do that. But that's the other area where you can look at a sea of 700 faces and see them all having the same reaction, and you're touching them. I'm not a performer. I can't stand up on a stage and tell jokes or sing or do something that affects people directly. The closest thing for me is being able to sit in a theater and watch a reaction to something that I've put up on the screen. So it's at one remove, but it's the same sort of feeling. That's where the drive and the desire to do that comes from.
I didn't fall back. I walked out of there to prepare for the next audition, and the next audition, and the next audition. I prayed. I prayed, and I prayed. But I continued to fail, and fail, and fail. But it didn't matter, because you know what? There's an old saying, you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut. So you will catch a break, and I did catch a break. Last year, I did a play called Fences on Broadway. Someone talked about it. Won the Tony Award. And I didn't have to sing, by the way. But here's the kicker. It was at the Court Theater. It was at the same theater that I failed that first audition 30 years prior. The point is, and I'll pick up the pace, the point is every graduate here today has the training and the talent to succeed. But do you have the guts to fail?
Ability to adjust is the entire game. Like, I'm so proud that I change my mind every day. My dad used to get so pissed when I was building Wine Library. He would always be like, he would say, like, 3 months ago you said Ricky was gonna be the best employee. I'm like, I changed my mind. Fire him. Or he's like, you said sparkling wine was important, now you just eliminated it from the key spot. I'm like, I changed my mind. Like, my ability to only be comfortable in massive chaos has been my biggest asset as an entrepreneur. Like, I would never take a note. Like, that scares the piss out of me what these three people are doing right now, right? And so, now, that may work for them, and I'm not, like, back to the opening statement, like, you need to do you. Like, plenty of people that make a load more money than me and have won bigger take notes. The key is way too many people are doing, like, here's a good one. You know what really pissed me the off? I'm completely driven by, like, happiness, and, like, I'm crippled by, like, chaos. Like, you know, VaynerMedia, which is now 500 people, update your VaynerMedia is, like, completely dictated by, like, I'm a dictator of HR. Like, all I care about is the atmosphere. All I care about is how people, all I care about is, like, how people roll. Like, I think I fired the 4 most talented, smartest people that have worked for me, because if you don't know how to play with the other boys and girls, you're out, because I suffocate under, you know, conflict and negativity, and, like, nobody's better than me, so you gotta go. So what really pissed me off in tech world was when Steve Jobs' book came out, when he was dying, when it was all about Steve 3 or 4 years ago. I literally watched a lot of my tech startup friends start being like a dick to their staff. Because Jobs was tough, everybody fell into the romance of, like, I have this big vision and I'm gonna be a dick like Steve, right? And I thought that was really interesting for me to watch that half decade of, like, literally watching people I know and then watching them act differently because the status or the icon of the moment, and you see a lot of that. And so, like, that is probably the energy I'm trying to bring to this class today, which is, you can look at, like, how people roll, and, like, it's great to admire and things of that nature, but it's so damn important to stick to, like, your DNA, right? And, like, what you're good at. And to recognize that you need to surround yourself, whether it's your co-founder or whether it's the people that work for you. Like, all I do is hire the people that are the opposite of me, that bring the other value, that bring me the ability to remember what the that meeting was about and go make sure it happens. You know, like, whatever it may be, right? And so I think that's another thing that I would highly recognize.
I'm not Mr. Mentor. I'm not the one who says, let's sit down, tell me how it's going. I'm gonna tell you exactly how I am. Get off your ass and get out there and sell something.
That's right.
I mean, I've never been okay, I need a mentor. You know, a lot of people look for mentors thinking they're gonna tell me the shortcut. Mark, will you be my mentor? You know the way. And they think I'm gonna go, ooh, and like, convey some magics. Here's the dust, go, go, go. It doesn't work that way. I still grind. I love to grind. If you're competing in one of my businesses, I'm gonna kick your ass because I'm gonna outgrind you, right? That's what being an entrepreneur is. You've got to get out there and do the work. So when it comes to how do you learn, right? Because that's the question, how do I learn this stuff? Man, everybody has got to go through that process. Right? I read I'm in the tech business, I'm in the media business, the entertainment business. I've got to try to prepare myself for all the Shark Tank businesses. I read 3 hours plus a day, right? Well, everybody else is getting a suntan, or even when I'm getting a suntan, I'm online or I've got books, I'm reading all I can.
This is how it's gonna play out. You are doing things right now. Yesterday, you made a decision that you don't believe in, but you're smart. You did it because you know how your company scores. Here's the problem with disruption and innovation. Right now, you're being rewarded for being a yes person, and in 36 months, you're gonna be fired for being a yes person. And you're doing it because you just need the security of your job. I'm telling you right the now, if you're watching this vlog and you've got, like, that means you have a certain DNA. Please, I implore you, please die on your sword, not somebody else's. If you're gonna lose, it's much more fun to lose based on what you thought. Do you know how many of you are gonna lose on somebody else's thesis? It's gonna kill at you, it's gonna eat at you, it's going to be the worst feeling. So please, pause this video right now and ask yourself, am I doing my shit because of me? Then you're good, whether you're winning or losing. Or am I doing it because somebody else is telling me it's the right way? Or I'm subconsciously pandering to please somebody or something because I need the short-term stability. Figure that the f out. You know it and I know it.
People are just so obvious. They don't even realize that when they box me in or try to verbally put me in some type of box or put Donda in a box, that they're really showing their level of ignorance. They're putting themselves in a box. And you know, people can write all they want, but what are people doing? And if there's anybody that's out there doing, they know how hard it is to actually do. And I'm like a motivation of the doers. If everything I did failed, which it doesn't, it actually succeeds, but if everything I did failed, just the fact that I'm willing to fail is an inspiration. People are so scared to lose that they don't even try. Like, one thing that people can't say is they can't say, I'm not trying, and I'm not trying my hardest, and I'm not trying to do it the best way that I know how with what little information I get.
I'm an entrepreneur, it's very great, but not all days are great in a company. So what are your tips and tricks for, tough days?
I think there's massive confusion around entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship sucks. I mean, it's lonely, it's high risk. I mean, I can't live without it, but it's like a bad boyfriend, right? Or girlfriend, right? There's a ton of bad days being an entrepreneur. Not to mention 98% of entrepreneurial ventures are gonna fail. So there's gonna be a really bad day in your future. Hopefully not for you, or any of you. For me, I think this is a very personal question. I think it's how you're wired. I'm so all-in entrepreneur, I prefer the pain. I think one of the reasons I love the Jets so much is because they bring me so much pain. I love the climb. To me, the setback is exciting. I love when something goes wrong. It's where I shine the most. But that's not for everybody, right? I mean, it can be very difficult. And when you start affecting your life and your loved ones and all the other things, it can get real nasty. To me, the way I handle things, even in the few rare days when I really struggle, I take a real step back and make pretend that somebody called me and told me that my mother or daughter were killed. And I know that's very dark, and I apologize, but it's really what I do. I literally am able to, at my deepest, most struggling moment within business, take a step back and remind myself that I could make $1 trillion tomorrow on Bitcoin, and if something bad happened to the people I love the most, that it would mean nothing. And it very consistently rewires me very quickly. I just put business in perspective. At the end of the day, you know, it's money. For me, it's not really money, it's my legacy, so I get hurt by it a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I put it in perspective. It's money. And you know what? Up until I had a daughter, even while I was married, up until when I had Misha 4 years ago, I secretly wanted to lose all my money. I had this weird, twisted, dark fantasy of losing everything just to rise again like a phoenix. And
feeling like your life matters. Because you've had the experience, you and I both have lots of friends who've achieved everything they could ever dreamed of, and they're miserable. I get the phone call to help turn them around. They're missing a meaningful life, and meaning comes from two things. I always tell people happiness comes from progress. If you can do something where you're growing, and because you've grown, you have something to give to other people that's meaningful, insight, love, caring, something, then life is rich. Because happiness comes and goes. Happiness is not here every moment, and happiness isn't all it's cracked up to be. Meaning is, there are people that have gone through horrible times. Met a woman who was 109 years old, and she was, you know, in the concentration camps. She's the oldest living Holocaust survivor. And that woman's life is so rich because of all the pain, because she's used that to help other people. Still at 109, she's strong, you know, she shares her music. She does the things that make her feel like she's got a contribution. So 109, she's fully alive.
In 2001, it snowed in New Jersey on December 23rd, which was one of the busiest days of the year. Typically, December 23rd is the busiest day of the year in a liquor store. And a woman called us, we just started shipping, and her case of Beringer White Zinfandel wasn't delivered. First of all, I appreciate the people that know what Beringer White Zin is, good job. The entire case, by the way, 15-pack, the entire 15-pack case cost $45. We're doing about $40,000 an hour in the store. She calls. I find out about it. Somehow it was buzzing because I was on the floor selling. I am the premier salesman on the floor, as you can imagine. I find out about it, and we're debating what to do. She needs it for her Christmas dinner. I grab the case, throw it in my car, and drive to Bergen County to deliver it. It takes me 2.5 hours to complete the whole thing. The woman was 194 years old. We didn't have a lot of lifetime value on the back end there. She looked like Yoda. And the best part was, I delivered it, all pumped with myself, and she said, great, and closed the door. Awesome. Everybody, especially my dad, who was pissed that I left because all the customers that came in asking for me or that I could have sold, everybody was baffled. I can't tell you what the ROI of driving through the snow in my car to deliver a case of $45 pink shit to a woman that looked like Yoda was. But I can tell you this, over the next 2 to 3 years, that story became the foundation of how we treated every single customer. It became our competitive edge. And those are the things that matter to me. I love black and white data. I'm obsessed with it. The day when the nerd beat me, I understood that the nerds beat me. And I respect the living out of data, conversion funnels, all that shit. But I'm telling you right now that there are way too many running businesses today with this, and not enough people running businesses with this. And again, I swear on my life, I am not Mother Teresa, and I'm far from run my business just on this. But I'm telling you right now, the reason I amassed my following, the reason why I continue to retain it, is because my percentage of this far outweighs every in this room. I mean it. That's how I feel, and that's how I try to roll every day. And I promise you, if you are able to figure out how to afford the allocation of this in your business more, your long-term value will be dramatically higher. Your long-term business success will be dramatically higher. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents built businesses based on this. It's how we built the whole thing. We got really lean and mean when we went to the suburbs and big box stores and all we cared about was dollars, and it's great. And the data matters, and continue to use it and use this tool and understand it. But I'm asking you one final thing. When you go home, if this talk meant anything, and by the way, I fundamentally believe only 3 of you are gonna act on this talk. I do, because what I talk about is ridiculously hard and massively frustrating and takes forever. You know, like everything that's good in life. If you do anything because of this keynote, there's only one thing I ask you to do, because as zenny as I got, I'm a practical. Here's what I want from you. When you go home, look yourself in the mirror and audit everything you and your business do. I promise you that if you audit from top to bottom of expenses and effort and time and energy and payroll and all that shit, if you audit all of it, even the best of us, even the InBevs, which is the company that bought Budweiser, they built their whole business on like printing on both sides of the paper and all that horse shit. Even the most efficient ones of us are doing 20% dumb shit. If you take that 8%, that 13%, that 16% of dumb shit that you're doing, paying that person that's not bringing any cultural value to your business, having that contract that you've just been in and you just renew because you're busy as fuck, whatever the fuck you're doing, if you take any piece of that percentage and you apply it to giving a fuck about your customer, it will be better for your business going forward, because for the first time since we all lived in small towns where your reputation was the complete backbone of how you did business, for the first time, because technology is bringing us back together in a small town, for the first time, being good and caring and following up matters. It matters. How about doing something random act of kindness for a current customer, not the ones that unsubscribed or left? You know how you always do nice shit when they're going? How about while you've got them? Reallocate your thought process, I'm telling you, because the tools that is the umbrella of this event are getting so good, so good. You know what that means? All that shit's about to become a commodity. Emotional EQ is going to dominate business over the next decade, and I implore you to start paying attention. And oh, by the way, I'll leave you with this. You know what the best part is? It feels good. What if I told you this was the last Monday morning of your life? What if I told you you died this week? Would you complain about your crap job or that test you don't want to take? I doubt it. You would go much higher level thinking. Well, that's really what it takes. It takes understanding that if you're not pumped right now, if you're begrudging what you're about to do, if you're not looking forward to it, look, I respect practicality. You gotta go through school because your parents want to. You gotta pay your rent. You got student loans, I get it. But please recognize the world we're living in. We're living in a world where there's so much more opportunity. This internet thing created way more opportunity for all of us, way more. I mean, look, you might not even be alive. Like, your mom and dad could have had sex like 3 minutes later and you wouldn't even exist, and you're complaining. You could have ended up being a bus, a tree. I just don't get the mentality of being head down sad on a Monday morning. I'm gonna make Monday morning my bitch. I'm gonna make you Saturday Monday morning. That's what I wanna do every morning, and that's what I want from you. Please, take a step back and think about how awesome it actually is. And then recognize that you can attack the world in a totally different way because you were lucky enough to be born during this era.
Dr. Howard Thurman, one of the mentors of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Albert Schweitzer and Mahatma Gandhi, he was a very brilliant writer. He wrote some things that really grabbed me. He wrote, "Deep is the hunger, the voice of the genuine, the centering moment." During the time after receiving 238 radiation seed implants, I was reflecting on his words, and these words kept me up that night. He said, "The ideal situation for a man or woman to die is to have family members praying with them as they cross over." He said, "But imagine, if you will, being on your deathbed and standing around your bed, the ghost of the dreams, the ideas, the abilities, the talents given to you by life, and that you, for whatever reason, you never went after that dream. You never acted on those ideas. You never used those talents. You never used those gifts. And there they are standing around your bed looking at you with large angry eyes saying, 'We came to you, and only you could have given us life. And now we must die with you forever. And the question is, if you died today, what dreams, what ideas, what talents, what books, what music, what leadership, what voice will die with you? Miles Monroe, great orator and speaker, said the wealthiest place on the planet, it's not in the Far East where there's oil in the ground. It's not in South Africa where there are diamond mines. He said the wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery. Because there you'll find greatness that we've never seen. There you'll find talent and genius and potential never actualized. Perhaps that's why Henry David Thoreau wrote the words, "Oh God, to reach the point of death, only to realize that you've never lived." Maybe that's why some unknown writer wrote the words, "What if you live your whole life only to discover that it was wrong? That it was wrong. That you were chosen to do something else and you didn't do it."
People come up to me and say, "Gary, it's so hard to..." I look at their Instagram and they're not posting any of their content with hashtags, which is a by accident way to pick up exposure in a world where they have no money. When you have no money, when I took over my dad's business, it did $3 million a year, 10% gross profit, $300,000 before expenses. My first year marketing budget was $14,000. When you have no money, and I built that business from a $3 to a $60 million business in 5 years, I had to make every penny perfect. So I was right about email marketing in '96, and I was right, and because of that I had 91% open rates. When Google AdWords came out, the day it came out, I paid 5 cents a click for words before anybody bid me up, and I was super right, and that worked.
How much is that luck versus preparation, and do you ever get anything wrong? What do you do when you make a mistake?
I get everything wrong. It's just that I can't recall it because once it's wrong, I'm moving on to the next thing. Like dwelling on what you fucked up on is the quickest way for the next thing not to work. Right?
Yeah.
So I think I do everything. I mean, you know this. This is a fun thing to say. Some people in the back know this. I was a breakout YouTube star in the first year, 2006. I decided that the right strategy was to leave YouTube completely and go to Vidler because Vidler offered me equity in their company, and I've left an enormous amount of attention. I deviated from my intention thesis to do short-term economics and equity in a company, and I lost. When D-Rock finally came in my life 2 years ago and we started to try to build up my YouTube for the first time, I was sitting on 40,000 followers in a world where I could have had millions if I just stayed the course. So I make mistakes all the time. I'm reorging VaynerMedia every day because it's based on a mistake I made the prior year. I just don't give a fuck about my mistakes. Everybody else cares about your mistakes. If you're worried about your own mistakes, you've already lost.
The only way to deal with fear that I found in my life is a couple ways. One of those ways is to turn it on itself and ask yourself, what am I afraid of? If I'm afraid of that, I gotta be more afraid of what I'm gonna miss out on, missing out on my mission, missing out on who I'm supposed to be. In other words, if you're not gonna get rid of fear, then use fear. Use fear or it uses you, it's that simple. So you gotta say, okay, what's the price if I just stay doing this? What's the price? What do I need to really get scared if I learn all this and I don't follow through? That's something to be scared about. And then that fear will get you over your fear. It'll push you through. Turn fear on itself. Second way you can do it is use what you've probably heard me say, because I've used it since I was 17, is my little rocking chair test, right? I'm gonna sit myself in my rocking chair, and I'm 85 years old, I'm looking back on my life, and I say, I didn't do this, or I did.
Sometimes a lot of people may try a new initiative and then they don't get an immediate reaction and they think it's a failure.
That's right.
I want to go back to your YouTube videos with the wine library. You know, you had so much content out there. How did you stick in there? How did you keep yourself motivated?
Because I believe in my strategies and I'm patient as shit. Like, all great stuff, especially when you're innovating, doesn't happen right away. This notion that like, oh, Gary, I tried it. I spent $500 on Facebook ads. It doesn't work. Well, what if your video sucked? What if your product and service sucks? I tend to do things that are very early. That has been my career. When I do things, I believe in them. I stick with them based on intuition. Even though for 18 months, nobody watched my wine videos at all, I knew it was right. I was right. There's been things I've done that I've jumped off of very quickly. I started a Gary Vee app, VChat, V-E-E, like WeChat, thought it was funny, for my fans. Great CRM one-on-one. Didn't feel right after a week or two, spent plenty of money building it, stopped it after, a couple months. Wine Library TV, 5 years, every day, YouTube. Decided to change it to Daily Grape, Insular app. You could buy stuff, subscription for reviews. It was a lot of fun. Only did it for 5 months, stopped it because it didn't feel right anymore.
Okay.
It's always hard to know when to jump off something new, but I find that people don't believe in what they're doing. They hear a guru and they do it begrudgingly because their boss wants them to, or they're like, well, Gary's right a lot, so let me do it, but they don't believe it. And so then they jump, they're looking for no's instead of yeses. Everything I do, every business development, every event I do, every time I try a new marketing tactic or sales tactic, I'm looking for the yes.
Right.
I'm looking for the yes, and if the no punches me, well then I'm like, crap, the no punched me. I believe the majority of people when they try new tactics are looking for the no, and you're gonna getting a lot of subtle no's immediately.
Right.
And so I think that's why that happens.